Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram @TVA and on Twitter X @TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Robbie Ansary. Robbie is a recently retired long-term TVA employee whose story starts as a refugee from Afghanistan. Robbie and his family fled their home as a result of the Soviet invasion in 1980. Robbie, before we get to your incredible journey, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
I drink tea.
Drink tea?
There was no coffee in Afghanistan. I didn't even know what coffee was.
I never knew that.
Yeah. I drank coffee for the first time, and a flight attendant offered it to us on our way from one small city in Pakistan to another. And I took one sip. And this was back in 1980. I have not drank coffee since.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
But I drink tea with sugar in it.
Green tea, black tea?
Black tea.
Black
yes.
tea? Well, I'm so glad you're here, and part of our partnership with TVA, I've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting people, and you've got a really incredible story. So, I'd like to start with obviously the beginning, being born in Afghanistan, but you were a refugee from the Soviet invasion. Can you kind of talk us through that, growing up and up to the Soviet invasion, and what it took for your family to have to flee?
Yeah, so I was born in 1965. My family was like a middle-class family. My grandfather was a governor and later a senator, and my dad worked for USAID agency. He had gotten his master's degree in education from NYU in 1964, but he went back to Afghanistan and worked for U.S. Embassy, Japanese Embassy, and as far as I know, when I was little, at the USAID agency, AID. Mm-hmm. And his salary was about $500 a month, which was a lot of money. So we were basically upper middle class in Afghanistan and lived in Kabul, the capital. And we had an awesome life. At the time, life in Kabul was just like life in Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, we had all the freedoms. We went to school. My mom worked. There were movie theaters. There were discotheques. I remember my mom and dad would go out, and to dancing and concerts. And everything was great until there was a coup d'etat.
Well, and I was going to ask you to, and I'm glad you described life in Afghanistan, because I think from an American perspective, all you think about is what you see on the news and current day Afghanistan, and you don't really understand that it was a pretty modern society.
It was modern, especially in the capital. I remember my mom wearing mini skirts.
Yeah.
And her hair was down. She never had to wear burqas or chadar, they called it. I myself and my brothers and sister, we all wore jeans and pants and tennis shoes.
So as a kid, you're growing up, just a normal life. You're living in the capital city. Mom and dad are working. You're just going about being a kid. So the coup d'etat, what happened?
So we had a King Zahir Shah. He was, I believe, on a trip to Italy, and his cousin, Dawood Shah, basically overthrew him while he was out of the country and proclaimed himself as the president. But soon thereafter, there was some clamoring and unhappiness among the elite. And there was another coup where the Communist Party in the capital paid off some generals, and they they attacked the presidential palace and killed Daoud Shah, and claimed that there is a revolution, and they basically installed the communist regime in the capital. But it didn't go well with the people because Afghanistan is 99.9% Muslim. And when people found out that the government is really a communist regime and they are affiliated with the Soviet Union, USSR, they started a resistance, a fight to overthrow that regime. And so that's when basically the civil war that has been going on since 1976 has continued.
So the coup d'etat was in 76?
I believe it was 76 or 77, yes.
And then it took 4 years for the Soviets to invade?
Yes. So what happened was the insurgency started, from what I remember from my dad, U.S. and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia started arming the insurgency. And the insurgency weakened the government, which was supported by Russia or Soviet Union. And by the time of Russia's invasion in 1979, the regime was really weakened, and it was in danger of falling.
So that's why they came in.
Yes,
was the problem.
Yes.
What? And this sounds like a strange question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is it like to be a teenager and you're living your everyday life, everything's normal, and then to have your government fall and basically civil war outbreak? I mean, what does that do to your everyday life?
Well, I was a teenager, so it was basically total lawlessness. There was no desire for kids to go to school anymore. We started skipping school. We would talk among themselves that, okay, today the whole class is not going to go to school. And we would just, we called it our own version of school strike. So school strikes became commonplace. The whole schools, nobody would go to school. But it was vivid the day that Russia actually invaded. For about 2 days straight, these Russian transport planes were circling over the capital. And there was a incomplete house next to our house where you could go to the rooftop. And we were all, including my mom and dad, were on the rooftop just watching these hundreds of Russian transport planes just continuously for like 24 hours, keep on coming down.
Just
and
one
landing.
after another.
And we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, are you getting any news at that time, or are you just seeing this?
Just music on the radio. Just music, yeah.
Meanwhile, all these transport planes and all this stuff.
Bringing Russian troops.
What are your parents saying to you?
They knew something was up, and they were nervous. Our dogs were barking,
They knew something was up.
Something was up. And then later, on the second night, fighting started. And these tank shells were flying over our house. And it was being fired by the Russian tanks and hitting this castle in what we call the Dorlamon Castle. And they basically killed the president that was, even though that regime was affiliated by Russia, I think Russia was thinking that this president was more in tune with U.S. So when they brought 100,000 soldiers into Afghanistan, they brought this Afghan man, his name was Babrak Karmal. And what they did was they killed the president that was in Dorlamon Castle, and they installed Babrak Karmal as the new president, as basically their handpicked guy.
Kind of what they were doing over all Eastern Europe and putting in their puppets.
Similar to what's going on in Ukraine in a way.
Yeah.
If they are able to take Ukraine, they're going to bring
their guy in.
their guy in. Yeah. So that's what they did.
So, and I just can't get over you're living a normal life, and all of a sudden something changes in almost a day. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes. So what happened was soon after Russia came in and brought Barbara Carmel in, there was some kind of plot that my family believes that Russia was involved in. They kidnapped the U.S. ambassador. His name was, I believe, Adolph Dubs. Took him to this restaurant in downtown Kabul called Oriana Hotel. And against the U.S. wishes, the government, he was taken to that restaurant, and against U.S. wishes, the government forces storm into that restaurant of that hotel and claiming that they are going to rescue the ambassador, but he was killed. So he was killed, and Jimmy Carter, the U.S. president at the time, in protest, he recalled all the Americans that were working at the USAID agency, and they closed the USAID agency and laid off all the Afghans. My dad used to work for the AID at the time. So my dad became jobless. And he was jobless for a while until the Russian embassy reached out to him for him to work at their embassy. Because my dad was fluent in English. Back in the 70s, there were very few Afghans that had come to U.S. to know English to then go and work. So my dad was like a hot commodity.
Yeah. Because he had come in 64 to NYU.
Yeah. So they wanted my dad to work for them, and my dad declined because by that time Russia had killed some of our relatives that were in the insurgency against the regime that was in the capital. And my dad did not like communism. It was...
Is he able to tell them no?
He declined.
Yeah.
And they threatened to kill him.
Yeah.
So my dad, from what I remember, my dad reached out to the U.S. Embassy to tell him his life is in danger. And at the time, the government of Afghanistan would not allow anyone to leave the country, like go to the airport and leave the country. So what the embassy advised my dad was if he could leave the country somehow, go to another country, and if he could tell the embassy what country he's going to go to, they're going to reach out to the U.S. embassy in that country, that my dad will reach out to them, and they should give my dad visa to come to U.S.
So basically get out of Afghanistan, let us know where you are,
yes,
and then we can help you from there.
Yes.
Over how long a period of time was it from you saw the transport plane circling to when all of this happened? Was this weeks or months?
No, it was probably about a year.
About a year?
Yeah.
And what's life like in that year?
They say the Red Army, they are really red. All the Russian soldiers that I saw, they were really red.
Really?
I don't know what part of, Soviet Union is a big...
Huge.
Yeah. They have, Siberia, and they had all those satellite states like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, but life was chaotic, is the best word. I mean, I have an uncle that was in the military before Russia invaded, and of course he could not get out, and he worked at the prison, at the main prison, which was behind the airport. And he tells me that right after Russia came, every night there were busloads of men coming to the prison. They were taken in the back, and then there was gunfire and a bunch of screams, and then everything would go quiet, and it was every day. So as soon as Russia came in, they started purging anyone that they thought was, a risk factor in destabilizing the regime that they had put in charge. that they needed to be eliminated. So
you're living through this, and obviously your parents are looking at this going, we got to do something. How's the decision made to get out of there? And just, again, kind of walk us through that whole thing.
So I was 15 and my brother was 16. And at the time, there were rumors that the government of, the puppet government was running out of soldiers to fight the insurgency. Even though Russia was propping them up, they didn't have enough soldiers. So what they were doing was they were picking kids off the streets. Like a car would come and just grab him and take him to the front line to fight the insurgency.
Young
kids, like 15s, anyone that can hold a gun. So my dad, I remember telling us that he was extremely upset that me and especially my older brother, he was 16, that we would just vanish one day because the government would take us to the front line to fight. And so that was one of his, and the other one, of course, was the fact that he was threatened by the Soviet embassy that they're after him.
And if you were just grabbed off the street, it's not like they're going to go inform your parents as to where you are.
No, you just vanish.
They just had to assume.
We had relatives vanish, that we have never heard even to today, what happened to them.
Wow. I can't imagine that. So what's the discussion in your family of now it's time to go, and what happened from there?
So my dad knew that we had to leave.
Yeah.
And so he started asking around what's the best way to leave. And he knew he wanted to go to Pakistan, not Iran, because those are the two countries that you could go to. And initially, the plan was for us to be hidden inside the hidden compartment of these 18-wheelers that you see on the roads. They had made hidden compartments with little holes at the bottom for breathing oxygen. And so the way they would take you across the border is you get in these hidden compartments and you're supposed to stay quiet. And because, and the route was to go through Jalalabad. And I don't know if you have seen Jalalabad. It's a very mountainous area between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And
isn't the whole border pretty mountainous?
Yes. And but because security was really bad, the Afghan government would create this caravan of cars that needed to go to Pakistan, and they would have tanks on the front and tanks on the back, and they go through this mountainous terrain to go to Pakistan. But the insurgency, they would be on top of the mountains, and what they would do is they would shoot at their rocket launchers or grenade launcher at those tanks and disable them, the front and the back, and then the entire caravan of cars and trucks and everything, they would get stuck in the mountains. And then they would start shooting and killing all the soldiers and looting everything. And the people that were hidden in those compartments, they would be stuck for days in the mountains, and a lot of them would suffocate to death or starve to death
because they had no way out.
Yeah. The drivers would be killed. So actually, my dad had planned for us to go that way, but just a couple of days before we were supposed to be taken, news came that another caravan was hit and a lot of people suffocated to death inside those. So my dad decided that, no, we are not going to go that route. And he found this other route, which was for us to go to Kandahar, which is another province. It's not as mountainous as Jalalabad. It's called Kandahar. Mm-hmm. And so we went through Kandahar.
And how far is the Pakistan border from Kabul, and how far is Kandahar from Kabul?
Kandahar is about 500 kilometers, so that would be maybe
300 miles?
Something 300 miles, yeah.
And what was your mode of transportation? How did you get there?
Well, it's a very long story, but the mode of transportation to actually go from the border itself and cross it into Pakistan was motorcycles. Yeah.
And in your family, there were 8 of you traveling?
Yeah. All 8 of us. Yes.
So how did that work? I mean, you're obviously not going to pile 8 people on a motorcycle,
No.
but you had more than one, right?
Yeah. So we went. Well, I mean, we had to prepare. So my mom and dad had prepared us these special clothes that the people in that Kandahar region wear, so we can.
So you can blend in?
Yeah, but we can blend in. And my grandma had made us these special underwears with pockets. And my dad gave us these wads of $100 bills that he had converted from Afghan money into dollars to hide in our underwears. And we had no luggage. It was us with our clothes and those dollar bills in our underwear.
Just what was on your back.
Yes. So these we went by bus to Kandahar, and we stayed with a friend's in his house, and then my dad and the friend actually found the smugglers that were going to take us across the border, and they negotiated the price, and my dad paid him half of the money, and they were going to take the other half after they took us across. So on the day that we were supposed to leave, they took us by taxi from the capital of Kandahar to the border itself. And along the border, there were going to be 2 Russian checkpoints. And the smugglers told my dad that when we reach at these checkpoints and the Russian soldiers come to the car and ask you where you're going, you should tell them that your wife has gone crazy. You're taking him to this holy place at the border, and they named it, and that you're going to go there to pray for your wife to get better. And that's exactly what happened. We arrived at one checkpoint. A Russian soldier with an interpreter came to the car. They asked where you're going, and my dad said, my wife has gone crazy. And we're taking her to a holy place to pray. And they laughed it off. I really believe that they were already bought off. They were bribed by the smugglers, but they had to go through the motion because their superiors were probably watching.
Yeah.
And they let us go. We went to the other checkpoint after so many miles or kilometers, and there was another checkpoint. Another Russian soldier came and asked the same question.
Same story?
My dad said the same story. Suffice to say, we arrived at that little village on the Afghanistan side of the border. We waited about an hour. They brought us some food and drinks. And then 3 smugglers came, different from the ones that were in the taxis that took us to that village. And they came on 3 motorcycles. But these were not like Harley Davidson. These were like mopeds. But we were much smaller. So they split us up. So my mom, my dad, and my littlest brother that was about 5 on one motorcycle, me, my sister, and my other little brother on one motorcycle, and my older brother and Wali. Wali was the son of one of my dad's co-workers at the U.S. Embassy. He had asked my dad to take Wali out with us. He was 16, like my older brother. The 2 of them were on the last motorcycle, so a total of 11 people on 3 motorcycles. That's how we crossed the border.
And it's not like it's nice paved roads.
Oh, no. Yeah, it was all dust and mountains. And unlike, Smoky Mountains that's covered with trees, it was all dirt. There are no trees in the mountains. And it was hot. It was summer. And,
And you're literally fleeing for your life.
Yes. And at the time, later Kandahar became a U.S. base. U.S. had a pretty big base in Kandahar. But when we crossed, it was a big base for Russia. So all along the border, when we took the taxi and we went to the village and crossing the border, they were Russian watchtowers. They were Russian helicopters, and we could see tanks that are buried with just their turrets out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And our motorcycle had to zigzag through these gorges and dirt pads. we were covered.
Yeah.
We didn't have any helmets, no eyeglasses, nothing. I mean, there was dust, but then we had the situation where the motorcycle that me and my sister and brother were on had a flat tire in the middle of our.
That's got to freak you out.
Yeah, that was a very harrowing situation, especially for my mom and dad.
Yeah.
I was young, and now I'm 60 years old. The smugglers got off their motorcycles, talked to themselves. They speak a different language. They speak Pashto, which is a different language from what we speak. We speak Farsi, which is Persian. So, but my dad could speak both languages. So then they came to my dad and said, hey, we cannot take all of you because, the motorcycle has a flat tire. You choose and leave 2 behind, and we are going to take 6 of you, and then we're going to come back and take the other 2. And right now, we don't know where we are. We don't know where the border is. And
you got to make a life choice.
And we have to make that life choice right there. And they wanted my mom and dad to be quick about it. So at the time, I didn't know it because my mom and dad were arguing with each other. But later, my dad said, I told your mom that, we have to do what they are saying, for one thing. And we need to leave the 2 eldest. I need to be with you because, my dad had heard that a lot of smugglers are bad apples. They kill the man, rape the woman, never take them across the border and keep their money. My dad said, I need to be with you to protect you and your
sister.
daughter. Yeah. Even though I don't know what my dad could have done because those were 3 smugglers with guns and my dad had nothing on him. But he knew that he had to be with my mom. My mom was saying, no, we need to stay, all 8 of us. They need to go fix their motorcycle and come back and get all of us. But my dad was saying, no, if the Russians, because the Russian helicopters were constantly flown, they were overhead watching the border. And that if they come across us, they're going to shoot all of us. So we need to save as many as possible. And my mom was crying, and those smugglers were nervous. They wanted my dad to shut my mom up because, sound travels and everything. So against my mom's wishes, my dad told my 2, my brother and Waleed, the friend's son, that they needed to stay behind. And they did not put up any kind of resistance to say, no, they don't want to stay. I think they were like me, we teenagers, no fear.
Yeah.
We could not grasp the gravity of the situation, but my dad did.
Well, I was going to ask you, did that, obviously you grow up really quick, but you're still a teenager. So to say you're not really grasping what's going on, or maybe not what's going on, the gravity of it.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Because I started writing diary from the day that we left Kabul. Unfortunately, my diary, I lost it. I don't know what happened to my, but I was keeping a diary. I was beside my dad the entire time. Like when he negotiated with the smugglers, I was right there. When he was talking to the smugglers, when they wanted they wanted us to leave 2 behind, I was right there. And I could tell that this was a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I mean, literally life and death. So
yeah.
So they say leave 2 behind. The other 6 of y'all get on the motorcycles and go. How do you have a reunion with them? Do you get across the border?
So my mom is crying and my dad is telling her to shut up because the voice travels and we are all going to get killed. We need to hurry up. And my dad had a little, there were no plastic water bottles at the time, but my dad had a metallic container that had water. And he gave it to my son and he told him, hey, I need to be with your mom and your sister. You and Wally, you just see the direction that the motorcycle are going to go and you walk in that direction. And if you see any kind of Russian helicopters or, their armored vehicles, try to stay out of sight.
Yeah.
And I promise you, I'm going to send the smugglers to get you. Later on, I asked my dad, I said, how confident you were that you were going to send the smugglers to... He said, I didn't know, but I had to keep your brothers because my dad promised my mom that he's going to make sure my brother and Wally...
I can't imagine what a difficult situation that was for him, leading the family and making that choice he had to make.
Yeah, he said later on, we asked him and he said, I had to make the best decision. He said, I would have loved to stay behind and for all of you to go.
Yeah.
But I had to be with your mom.
Yeah, he had to protect your mom and your sister. Absolutely.
Right.
So how long did it take you on motorcycles to get across the border, and where'd you end up?
So I don't remember exactly how long, but seemed like ages,
Yeah.
Because we were all sad that, my mom was crying. And I couldn't hear because the sound of motorcycle, but I knew my mom was still crying. So, zigzagging and we arrived at the border and they were Pakistani border guards, they just waved us. I believe there was some kind of agreement between U.S. and Pakistan that Afghans that are leaving, they should be allowed to leave. So there was no, let me see your passport. They just waved us and we...
That had to be a welcome sight.
Well, there was nothing. There was nothing. So these motorcycle riders stop at this little circle. Some little towns in U.S. has like Market Square, right?
Yeah, like the town square.
Yeah, but this was all mud houses, but there was a little circle in the middle of it. Was surrounded by homes. They dropped us right there, and something like 30 or 40 Pakistani villagers just came and they squatted like this and just shook their head, feeling sorry for us because we were head to toe covered in dust and my mom is crying. And I say it felt like we were zoo animals.
Yeah.
They were looking at some animals. So they dropped us off and they wanted the rest of their money. And my dad said, no, you need to go bring my 2 sons. And they were like, we don't know where we left your sons. And, they might have already been captured. You should be happy that, you still have 4 kids with you.
Wow.
And my dad said, no, you bring my and they tried to intimidate my dad, that we know you have the money on you, we can force it out of you. But my dad said, I don't have the money. What my dad had done was before we left Kandahar, that friend's house, he had given the rest of the money, which was $4,000, to his friend. And he had cut $100 bill in half and he had given half to his friend and advised him that once the smugglers take all 8 of us across the border and they want the rest of the money, I'm going to give him this half of the $100 bill and I'm going to tell him to come to you. And when you can match the 2 halves and it's a perfect match, you give him the $4,000. But if they never come to you or if the halves don't match, then we are being killed.
Wow.
And I don't know, you can keep the money, but inform my father in Kabul that we have been killed. That would be my grandpa. Mm-hmm. And so that's what my dad done. And so my dad told him, I don't have the money. They said, where is it? My dad said, you bring my kid, then I will tell you. So I guess they believed my dad because my dad was pretty stern and firm with him on that. And so they left one of the smugglers with us and two of them got back on their motorcycles, and we waited there. And after, I don't know, 2-3 hours, they came back. We could see him from far, and I could see the legs of my brothers, and brother and Wally.
That had to be such a feeling of relief. I mean, not just for you, but I would imagine your mother in particular.
Oh yeah.
So you get into Pakistan. What happens next to your family? Do you stay in Pakistan? Do you immediately come to the United States?
Well, that's what we thought. We had no luggage or nothing. We just had the money in our underwears. So we went from that little village to a bigger town in Pakistan, and finally ended up in Peshawar, which is a big city in Pakistan. But the U.S. Embassy is in Islamabad. So one day, my dad, me, and my brother and Wally went to the U.S. Embassy, and because we knew the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan had informed them that we are coming to Pakistan. So we went inside, and I don't know if it was the ambassador or the assistant or somebody from the embassy came and greeted us. And they said, yeah, we know you were coming. We were informed that you're coming. So please give us your passport so we can stamp it with U.S. visa. And my dad said, we don't have passports. Nobody that ran away from
You're
Afghanistan.
fleeing for your life.
Yeah. Actually, we burned all our identification cards because my dad was afraid that if we are caught by the Russians, that not only we will be killed, but the Russians would be killing my grandpa and
anyone related.
Anyone related. So, although I don't know if we were tortured, if we could, we could, especially as kids, I don't know if we would not divulge our last name or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, my dad had burned all our identifications, so we didn't have nothing. And so the embassy said, well, then if you don't have passport, we cannot give you visa. So we dejected, we went back to Peshawar. And so instead of just a few days, we were stranded in Peshawar for 4 months. And all these other Afghans were coming to Pakistan, and they were immediately coming to U.S., and we were stuck for 4 months. It turned out that what everybody was doing, they were going to this back alley in Peshawar, and they were making fake passports, Afghani passports, and they were taking to the embassy. And at the time, U.S. had already agreed to bring so many Afghan refugees to U.S. Germany was doing the same thing. They ignored the fact that the passports are fake and
just stamped it.
But because my dad had educated in New York, and he was afraid that if we make fake passports and we go to the airport and they determine that these are fake, that the Pakistani government would ban us from flying. And but at the end, it got to the point we were running out of money, and the only money we had left was plane tickets. So my dad got desperate, and so one day, again, the four of us went to this back alley, made fake passports, and took it to the U.S. Embassy, and they stamped it for us, and we were on our way to U.S.
So you leave Pakistan, you get on the plane, you're going to the U.S. Where do you go? Where do you end up?
So we came to U.S. on what's called humanitarian parole visa. Majority of Afghans came with a visa called refugee. Mm-hmm. And I never really asked this question from my dad if this was his pride or what, that he asked for humanitarian parole visa instead of refugee. If we had come on a refugee visa, U.S. Would have provided us with housing for 6 months, food stamp, and clothing and different things. So
allow you to get settled.
Yeah, but we came with none of those as part of the humanitarian parole visa. The only good feature of humanitarian parole visa is that we had the right to work on day one. That's what my dad wanted. He wanted to work and make money and not be a burden on U.S. Public or charge.
Yeah.
So we arrive at JFK Airport It's evening around 7 p.m. and we are wearing all these Afghani clothes. We look so different. And, I had never seen, like Indians and Chinese and different people working or be in the same place, because Afghanistan, all people are the same.
Yeah.
You only have one type of people. You don't have Chinese or blacks or whites or, it's how should I say it? It's one people.
Yeah.
It was so amazing to see women drive buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were quite amazed. But we are standing in a corner of the airport, and my dad had two numbers of two people to call to help us. These are Afghans that lived in New York. One was a childhood friend that had my dad had helped go to Denmark, and from Denmark to US. My dad had lent him some money for plane ticket, and he worked in a food processing plant. My dad called him first and said, "Hey, we are at the airport. Can you help us?" And he said, "No, why did you come to US? US is a very bad place. Go back to the immigration office. Tell him you made a mistake. Go back to Afghanistan." Suffice to say, my dad never talked to that guy again.
I bet.
The second one was Rebecca. She was half Afghan, half American. Her mom and my dad's uncle. My dad's uncle had gone to Chicago University back in the 40s, to University of Chicago, and married her and took her to Afghanistan. And Rebecca was born in Afghanistan. She was the first American girl born in Afghanistan who had an Afghan father. But she was in New York getting her degree in drama from some university, and she lived in Long Island. And so she was basically my dad's cousin. My dad called her, and she immediately came with her husband. She was married, in one car, and I don't know how we fit in one car, but they took all of us to Long Island. They lived on the beach.
Yeah.
So we went from living, my brothers and I in Pakistan, we were living under a tent, which was open. It didn't have any walls to keep the insects out. And every night we were spraying DDT on our blankets to keep the insects from biting us. We went from that to now living in a beach house in Long Island. I mean, it was like day and night difference, you know. Yeah. I always tell people that when I came to US, we time traveled about 20 years into the future. That's how backward Afghanistan was compared to, just to give you an example, to eat a chicken, my dad had to go to the market, buy a live chicken, bring it home, kill it. And my mom had to boil water, soak it in there, defeather it, cut it into pieces, cook it. And we came here and we had trays of chicken breast.
Yeah, it's right there for you. And at the time you were in Afghanistan, it was more modern than we perceive it to be today. But still, when you got to the United States, it was a culture shock.
It was culture shock. Like I said, you know, I had never seen a woman drive a bus.
Yeah. But getting to establishing yourself in the United States was not easy, was it?
Yeah. So after a week, my dad told us, you know, when Rebecca and her husband were not, he said, "Hey, we don't want to overstay our welcome here. We need to go back." And my dad was told by some people that when you go to U.S., try to go near Washington, D.C. You might find a job there. Yeah. So,
because he worked for the embassy in Afghanistan?
USAID agency.
USAID,
he had worked
right.
At the embassy before, but when we left, he worked at the USAID.
And educated in the United States, so fluent in English.
Yeah. So we took Greyhound bus and we went to Alexandria, Virginia. And again, you know, we came out and we didn't know where to go, right?
Right.
We had nobody to greet us. And so there was a taxi stand, and my dad went to a taxi because it was getting late to take us to a hotel or someplace, even though we barely had, I think my dad had about $500 or so at the time. Turned out that the taxi driver was an Afghan, and his family had just run away, and they had arrived
Wow.
So he had a 2-bedroom apartment in a project. And he somehow knew my dad from Afghanistan because the Ansary name is pretty popular because my grandpa was a governor, and not when we left many years ago. So the name was familiar. So he recognized my dad's last name, and he offered to take us to his house. So he took all 8 of us, and we stayed with him and his family for 7 days in his house. He fed us and everything.
What a blessing.
Afghans are pretty hospitable people if you know them. Now, they can be mean if they are your enemy.
Yeah.
But then he found us an apartment in the same apartment complex. It was basically a project, similar to some of the projects we have in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. It was somewhat crime infested and everything, and we lived in the basement floor. I think the rent was like $180 or something, but it was very depressing. I remember telling my dad, if this is America, I'd rather go back to Afghanistan. But a couple of miracles happened, and there is a controversy between my mom and I on that controversy, on that miracle. I remember that we were walking on the street one day, soon after we arrived in U.S., in Alexandria, and a car stopped, and this guy recognized my dad and said, "Hey, Farid," my dad's name is Farid, "what are you doing in U.S.?" And my dad said, "Hey, Paul, Russia was after me and I had to get out. And what are you doing now?" he asked. And my dad said, "Nothing, I need a job as soon as possible." He said, "Why don't you go tomorrow to Washington, D.C. to Voice of America and tell him Paul Bremer sent you and that you need a job?" Now, my mom thinks that's not how it happened, that we were in a Kmart and there was an Afghan refugee there, and he told my dad that you should go to Voice of America. I don't know which one. I really think it was Paul Bremer. Why else? I mean, how would I know Paul Bremer if I've never met the guy? Anyway, so my dad went to Voice of America and said exactly what Paul told him, and they took a test to see if my dad knows English, and he was hired as an international broadcaster for Voice of America to read the news to people of Afghanistan. And that's how my grandpa and my relatives learned that we are in U.S., because they heard his name on Voice of America.
And that's the power of Voice of America and what that service it provided.
Because the Afghan government would never tell Afghan people the real news, right? So Voice of America. Was
Paul Bremer, is he the State Department guy I'm thinking of, or is that a different Paul
no,
Bremer?
It is. Yeah. So what I remember is Paul Bremer used to come to Afghanistan in his younger days because he worked in the State Department, and he would go oversee projects, AID projects. And I guess he would travel to all countries. But when he would come to Afghanistan, AID would send my dad as his interpreter to go with him. So that's how I believe when he saw my dad, he recognized him.
What a miracle. I mean, you couldn't write that in a script.
I know. So we didn't have a car. So when we went grocery shopping that day, all 8 of us were going. So when we came back, we would all carry the grocery bags, right? So we are walking on this. If we hadn't walked that day, if we hadn't gone shopping, or if he hadn't driven that day, I don't know.
You don't know
what
where
the future, because my dad told me that he never thought that there is a job at Voice of America for him. But that guy told him to go to Voice of America.
And how long did your dad end up staying at Voice of America? Through
25 years.
Wow.
And retired in 2006, I think.
So he's reading the news that's being
every
beamed
day
into Afghanistan.
Yeah, every day.
Wow.
He was reading the real news to Afghanistan.
The real news. Great point.
Yeah.
And I don't want to rush us along, Robbie, but I do want to establish, growing up in the United States and going to college and how you eventually got to TVA, because you're coming here with nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. But your family reestablished itself, and you got roots, you got educated, and you got on with a tremendous organization like TVA.
Yeah, so I always tell people that I was destined to work for TVA since childhood,
Yeah.
and I have mentioned it to my TVA colleagues. So AID built a mini-TVA in my country called HVA. Stands for Helmand Valley Authority. It was modeled after TVA. It was built in the southern part of Afghanistan to help the southern part of Afghanistan come out from under poverty and depression, similar to what
Basically the
TVA
same thing here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my dad used to take me and my brother to HVA because his brother worked there. And I have pictures of me on some HVA or US digging equipment like Caterpillars. He would show us the hydroelectric dams, and I would say, "Who built this?" And my dad would say, "This was modeled after TVA in Tennessee, and there are some engineers that built this." Then I'd say, "Well, when I grow up, I'm going to become an engineer and work for HVA, not TVA, HVA, because I never thought one day I would be coming to US."
So that made such an impression on you at that time that planted that seed.
Yeah, but I forgot about everything when Russia invaded. Yeah. And of course, I got busy with life, our life, we were upper middle class. Now we were refugees. We came here with nothing. And so I forgot everything.
Did you even think that was possible at that current state? No.
So, I always say, what are the chances that a little Afghan boy would end up, of all countries in the world to become a refugee? We became refugees here. And of all the 50 states, we ended up in Virginia. And of all the universities that I could have gone to, I ended up in Virginia Tech. And of all the universities in Virginia that TVA recruits from is Virginia Tech. And it just happened that on that day that I went to the recruitment office to see about looking for a job, TVA was coming to interview kids. And I put my resume in the little mail slot, hoping that I would get an interview. And somehow I got an interview. And next thing you know, I got hired. It was, so that's why I think
there's so much providence there, just fate that served that you can't explain it.
Yeah. I mean, I heard about TVA when I was, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old in Kabul, Afghanistan, halfway around the world. Never knew, what Tennessee is or what the US is, but I had heard about TVA.
And that was a project, the HVA, that was through USAID.
Yes, to help. USAID has a lot of really good projects to help different countries of the world improve people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually cried when USAID was disbanded recently. Yeah, because maybe in some countries it was not helping, but in Afghanistan, USAID was really helpful to, especially in the 1950s and 60s. Later on when Russia was invaded and occupied, everything was in a state of disrepair. But
you've seen the good. Yeah. You're at Virginia Tech. You apply. You're electrical engineer.
Yes.
So you got hired right away, and you went to work for TVA right out of school.
Yes.
So you moved to Knoxville at that time.
Yeah, I'd never been to Tennessee. I remember when I got the offer sheet, I called my mom and dad. I said, and we were under the first Gulf War, so the country was in a recession. Jobs were not plentiful for new graduates. And I, informed them I have an offer from TVA, and they said, "Son, you need to be living close to us. We want you to be taking care of us when in our old age, find a job in Alexandria, Virginia, I said, well, jobs are scarce. Let me go to TVA, and I remember when I was little, I said, I want to work for HVA. I said, let me go to TVA, work for a couple of years and get some experience, and then maybe I can come back. The rest is history, right? I 34 years, 2 months, and 15 days.
Wow. And recently retired.
Yeah, September 30th.
What is that whole process meant to you? That whole life experience of having to flee your home country and come to a strange country, and then you not just establish yourself, but establish yourself at something that as a little kid you said, one day I'm going to work.
You know, it was like a dream come true. You know, I always tell people that TVA is the best company to work for. I have given my life to TVA. TVA has a great mission, serve the people of the Valley to make life better.
Yeah.
HVA did the same thing back in the 50s and 60s, and to be part of TVA, helping, customers of TVA. It was a dream come true. And I didn't want to retire because I have a great bunch of people like Tom and everybody. But, we all have to leave one day, right? And seemed like everybody in my family dies in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So I wanted to...
You're going to enjoy life, aren't you?
Yeah. But I miss TVA.
I've mentioned this to a couple other guests we've had from TVA before, but when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, I can remember that they would bring in the film projector and show us the film of TVA electrifies the Valley. And it was the whole film of the dams being built and what it's done for the Tennessee Valley, and really pulled the Appalachia out of poverty.
Yeah.
Or as much as it could at that time.
And the mission continues,
The mission continues.
Yeah. I mean, our economic development is second to none, bringing all these companies. I mean, look at what's happening in Oak Ridge. All these big companies are moving in. We have Amazon, we have Meta, which used to be called Facebook. I mean, TVA, economic development, has had a hand in all those companies because TVA wants people of the Valley to have good paying jobs, to have great life in the Valley.
When you look back on your life, your journey, obviously your dad was just a stalwart in getting your family to safety. What were some of the other lessons for you that you look at and that you've carried through your career?
And I tell this to a lot of young engineers. I have hired a couple, not money. Throughout my life, I haven't really asked to be promoted. I've not been very ambitious that I want to move up in the company. I have always provided a honest day's work and let chips fall where they may. And TVA has always rewarded me for my work. I was hired as a power utilization engineer. TVA asked me to become a customer service engineer. TVA asked me to be a customer service manager because they saw that I was pretty good worker in a way. So I think if you work hard, if you just give 100% to TVA, you will be recognized, and you will, you just need to be patient.
It's a good career path.
Yeah.
I do have one more question for you, but before I get to it, I want to remind our listeners who makes all of this possible. And it's thank you to the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring my Morning Cup. Follow TVA on social media to learn more about its multifaceted mission of service, and visit tva.com/do-good-here to explore exciting career opportunities with TVA. I'm going to adjust my last question to what I typically ask someone. Your journey has been unlike anything I've ever talked to anyone about. I mean, literally life and death. and fleeing for your life and then coming to a strange place and establishing yourself. As you look at that journey, what do you think beyond your work contributed to you having a happy life?
Yeah. My journey has made me humble. So in Afghanistan, you have a lot of poor people. It's a third world country, a lot of illiterate people. It's only about 10 to 15% of people are literate. So a lot of people have to make ends meet, they would come to the capital and work as servants in people's homes. So throughout our lives in Afghanistan, we had servants. We had servant quarters on the back of our house. They would live there and they would work. And they would wash dishes. They would, cook for us and everything. My mom never really had to wash dishes or cook. Wash dishes, but wash clothes.
Mm-hmm.
We always had a servant wash clothes. I don't know if you have read the movie Kite Runner. It's similar to that. That's the kind of lifestyle we had. And we came to U.S. and everything turned upside down. My mom became a housekeeper, cleaning hotel rooms. Even though soon after my dad found a job at Voice of America, my brother and I found jobs as dishwashers. So it's like we had servants in Afghanistan and we became servants in U.S. Yeah. So our life. So I have seen both sides of it.
Right.
I have seen that side and I've seen the other side. So I have become humble and, accept life as it is, learn from the life that you lead, and try to help others that are less than you or, that need help. Paul Bremer was a big help to us. Like I said, I don't know what would have happened.
Oh, and the cab driver who put 8 of you in his...
Yes, I mean, we have had so many miracles.
Yeah.
Like me finding the job with TVA.
Yeah.
It was sort of a miracle. Or I was destined. So, life throws you these challenges and you will get through them. Humans are resilient. Don't give up. And my family never gave up. And so we are back to what we were in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Now, 45 years later. It took a while.
Yeah.
But
you got there.
I tell my kids, they are so spoiled. They don't even want to listen to my story.
Right.
So I said, I need to write a book so that when you have your kids, maybe you can teach your kids. But
well, I hope you do write a book, and I've done about 150 of these podcasts, and never had a story like yours. And I admire you a bunch.
Well, thank you. One last thing, the proudest moment of my TVA career, it wasn't, getting promoted to customer service engineer or customer service manager. It was this. This is a memo from TVA board to me.
Do you mind if I read it?
Yes.
And this is to Robbie Ansary, customer service and marketing, recognition for an unwavering duty to fellow man in time of need. The TVA board would like to commend you on your unwavering desire to help in time of need. Your willingness to literally go the extra mile to rescue those from TVA who were stranded in Washington, D.C. has not gone unnoticed. During this time of national crisis, precious time was sacrificed with your family to travel far to assist others. Helping in time of need has always been part of the TVA legacy. After 68 years, we are proud to see that spirit is still alive and stronger than ever. Thank you for your efforts. Signed by Gene McCullough, the chairman, and Skyla Harris, a director.
Yes. So on the night of 9/11, 2001, some TVA folks were stranded in Washington, D.C. because that plane hit the Pentagon.
And all flights were grounded after that.
Yes, and I felt so bad about what happened because there were rumors that people of Afghanistan did this. But I knew it was Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden is not an Afghan. He's from Saudi Arabia, and he lived in Afghanistan, and he plotted everything. So I wanted to do something to feel good.
Yeah.
So I offered TVA. I said, anything I can do to help. And I believe it was Dick Talent. He was a VP in the customer group. He said, well, can you go to Washington, D.C. and bring those D.C. staff? We have an office in Washington, D.C. And I said, of course. And rented a van that night, drove all night on 9/11, arrived on 9/12 around 6 a.m. There were still all kinds of police and military and fire trucks at Pentagon. We
were on a war footing.
395 passes right by Pentagon. And we went to the D.C. office and took all those people and brought them.
You're a good person. You are.
Well, I have always, customer service has always been in my gene, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, I've enjoyed talking to you today. It's had a big impact on me, and I'm really glad I got to meet you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Consta Media Advisors. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.